There you go. Brilliant.
Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Live Well Live webinar. It's Monday lunchtime. Thank you for saying hello in the chat box. It's great to hear from all of you. We are completely live, so do join in, say hello. We are real. My name is Dr. Samantha Wellapilly. I am the lifestyle medicine lead here at Boots Online Doctor. I'm a GP, yoga therapist. I teach meditation, and I'm also an empowerment coach. And Ruth and I here are so keen to support you on your weight loss journey. That's what we're here for, to give you some information and to take your questions. So if you've come with questions already, please do pop them in the Q&A box so that we can get to them at the towards the second half of today's webinar. And we will endeavour to answer as many as we can. That was lots of chatting from me. Ruth is going to say hello too.
It all makes sense to me anyway. Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruth Taylor. I am the nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor Service and also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. We absolutely love being with you on the Mondays that we're with you. We try and be here as many as possible. And we really are here to share with you the evidence around all of the mystery that seems to surround weight loss and the journeys that we go on in this weight loss journey. We want to demystify, we want to share the evidence, and we want to really help you get, and more importantly, stay on track. We want this to be your sort of long-term success story. So that's what motivates us to be here. We're really interested to hear with you what's motivating you to be here. We actually have a poll we could share just to hear whether you've been here before. So let's have a look at this. Brilliant. No, we weren't going to ask that one, but we will ask that one. Thanks, Adna. We're here. We have Adna with us today. So we are starting with a poll, just finding out what's going on for you in terms of this whole psychology of weight loss. And the webinar attendance. Brilliant. Thanks. That is the one I wanted. Thanks for switching those over. Brilliant. So the webinar, we'd love to know whether you've been here before, how often you've been here, if you've not found us, whether you've never even heard of us, if this is your first time, what inspired you, do tell us in the chat box to come along today. We're keen to encourage people to come along to these webinars. We know that engaging with the whole lifestyle side of weight loss is really as important as anything that you can do in this journey. So anything we can do to encourage people to come along, we would love to know. That's
Absolutely.
enough, I think. Let's carry on.
Let's get on to the
Yeah,
meat of the of today's talk.
definitely.
So we wanted to start this this talk, which is all on the psychology of weight loss, and just to talk about a little bit about calories, because we have this sort of mystique or this kind of I guess it's the strictness around calories. And we really need to talk about calories and what they are and how they are somewhat of a flawed science because we have to take into account that a food is much more than just its energy content, which is what a calorie is. A calorie is a measurement of energy. So the amount of energy in a bowl of broccoli, the amount of energy in a bowl of jelly sweets is going to be different, okay? But also we have to look at what else is in that bowl. So that bowl of broccoli is also going to have lots of phytonutrients. It's going to have fiber. It's going to have lots of vitamins for you. The jelly sweets are going to be high in sugar. Really, that's kind of all they're going to be high in, really very, and E numbers and all sorts of other things, but mainly sugar. So that's mainly sugar, whereas the broccoli will have very low sugar. It will have some carbohydrates that are complex and fiber. So they'll take longer for your system to digest. They will take energy for your body to digest. So actually, you're using calories to digest that broccoli, whereas the jelly sweets will go through your system very quickly because they'll release their energy, which is basically all sugar, straight away into your blood sugar, and you'll get those swings in blood sugar, as you know, with having sweet things. So we just want to point that out so that you have an understanding of when we think about counting calories, calories aren't the only measure of a food, right? So we've taken two quite extremes there, the jelly sweets and the broccoli, but just to illustrate that point that there are other things within a food that makes it healthy or not, or advisable or not on your weight loss journey. Okay. Um, so we want to think about how the body is working, how the physiology of our body works when we consume a food. It's a bit more of a complex process, but we want to regulate our energy balance, our blood sugar balance. Um, and those different foods contain different nutrients, different macronutrients, and they have a big effect on the way the content of the food has a big effect on how it is digested, and also, um, interestingly, how our hormones work, our fullness hormones, our hunger hormones, and in turn, that will impact our hunger and our eating patterns. Okay, so there's a bit of information here about different kinds of sugars. So we can think about different types of sugars like fructose and glucose. So fructose and glucose are two slightly different types of sugars in our foods, and they can increase our hunger hormone, which is known as ghrelin. Um, but interestingly, fructose has been shown to uh, what's the easiest way to explain this? Um, Fructose doesn't make us feel as full as glucose does. Okay. And it can cause us, therefore, to eat more and feel less satisfied, which can lead to weight gain around the waist, around our middles, and of course, affect our blood sugar levels. And over the longer term, it can impact our an increasing risk of diabetes and other metabolic issues. Fructose is often used in jelly sweets, in these kinds of processed sweet foods. Okay. And it's pretty addictive also. Okay. And it also doesn't trigger those hormones that tell us that we are full. All right. So it can be a real factor, leading to overconsumption and be a contributor towards increasing our weight and towards obesity, which we want to really avoid. And one of the big culprits you might have heard of is high fructose corn syrup, which is used which now is under a production quota within manufactured goods. And on labels, you ought to be able to identify it as isoglucose or glucose fructose syrup. So we really want to be avoiding foods that contain those, because this is one of those very high calorie additions to food that makes that food more moreish, that really messes about with our hormones, doesn't give us those full signals, and can actually increase our hunger. Okay. Um, so we really want to think about how our body processes the different food types that we eat without just looking at calories, because calories is a very one-dimensional way to look at the foods that we eat. Okay. The research has shown us that protein and fiber make you feel more full. We know this. This naturally stops you wanting to eat as much. So it's really beneficial on a journey of weight loss. Okay. Um, we are really, if you've come to any of our webinars, we talk about protein a lot and including protein in every meal if you can, just to really help you to start noticing when you feel more full and that you don't perhaps want to have that mid-morning snack if you've added some protein to your breakfast, noticing that you feel fuller for longer. Um, I know a lot of people are interested in calories, so please do ask questions in the Q&A box, because this might be new, a bit new to you, or um, if I haven't explained it really clearly, please do ask questions, because it's a really important point that we want to get across today.
Yeah, such an important point. We also wanted to dive into our thoughts. So, Sam, do you want to? This is
Oh, is this
such
for
an
me as well?
important point. Yeah, sorry, I
Okay.
thought I'd work you really hard today.
That's fine. That's fine. So our thoughts becoming our reality. So we know that our thoughts drive our behavior. And in turn, we can think about our beliefs becoming our reality. Because our thoughts drive our actions, if we constantly think negatively or doubt ourselves, we're more likely to engage in those self-sabotaging behaviors. Hands up, anyone who has sabotage themselves on a weight loss journey. I know I have. Um, and I've talked to myself like um, I can't do this. Oh, I've messed it up so many times. What makes me think I can do it this time? That kind of thing. That kind of negative self-talk. I've definitely had it. with weight, with other things also, like who are you to think that you can do this? We are human and these thoughts do happen, but we also have our minds are incredible. We can train ourselves out of those habits. We can just think of it like a habit, like any other. And this habit is not helping you. It most certainly becomes this um, limitation. And probably many of us have heard of limiting beliefs. Okay. And these limiting beliefs don't have to become our reality if we start changing the script, changing that inner dialogue. Okay. We can adopt or flip the script to a more positive, a growth oriented mindset, which can lead to more proactive behaviors and more resilience when we face challenges. Because no one is going to tell you that there will not be challenge on this journey. I think we all know that, and we've all been around long enough to know that there are challenges on this road. So we want to really examine what are our beliefs. So, for example, our identity. What do we identify as? Do we see ourselves as someone who is unhealthy or healthy? Someone who is good at being on a diet or bad at being on a diet? We have to gradually, and this is step by step. I can't promise that this will happen overnight. It might. Maybe you're brilliant at this and you can flip the script immediately. Give yourself a chance. Okay, give yourself a chance. Catch yourself when you have those self-sabotaging thoughts. Okay, and tell yourself with that kindness and compassion, no, I am my own biggest cheerleader. I can be someone who takes care of my health. I can be something. I am someone who who really values me, values my health, values the health of my heart, my liver, my joints, values my energy levels, values my mood. And I know that I am worth making these changes. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm punishing myself by having something that I wouldn't normally have, one, we make that food more interesting so that you do enjoy it, because this is, we really want you to start enjoying food that is healthier and will support you on this journey. But also, we really need to work on the mindset piece, and we talk about it a lot, but we really need to know who we are and to shape our behavior day by day when those thoughts come up, when that inner talk comes in and starts to kind of push us off track. We have to know that we have that inner resilience, that inner strength to be like, you know what? I am worth making this change. I have made a choice that I want to make a big difference to my health, and I'm going to stick to that. And it's step by step. And you might have to say this to yourself or variation of it 100 times in a day. That's okay, because it's actually that repetition that will help you, that will give you that consistency. It's that more proactive growth mindset that will encourage the consistency in those thought patterns as well as the behaviors that those lead to. Okay. Um, we know that weight loss is a long-term journey and it requires consistency, and that positive mindset can help you stay motivated through setbacks. Thoughts like, or just reflections like, I am making progress, even if it's steady, encourage that persistence rather than stopping after a small setback. Because I know we can all have, you know, something that happened unexpectedly and we did an unconscious behavior and we ate something because we were really stressed about something. It happens. But do we throw everything out of the window because that happened? Or do we draw a line? Right, we're going to keep going because this is really important to me. And it comes back to in the beginning, we talked about we talk a lot about your why, your primary anchor. Why am I doing this in the first place? And it's really helpful. And I think it's really important to have this core anchor that you come back to. Why am I going on this journey that actually is causing me a bit of a headache and it's hard and I'm frustrated and I just want that blooming chocolate bar. Why am I punishing myself? And we're not thinking, oh, we're trying to flip that switch. It's not about punishment. This is really about what is best for you in the long run, and you're going to reap these amazing rewards, lose the weight, and feel so much better in yourself. Energy, mood, joint pain, all sorts of things improve. We know this when we lose weight. So we're talking really, the weight is almost secondary. It's really about all those health goals that we're talking about. Um, there's also other things on here about, when we think about our thoughts becoming reality, what about visualization? Can you visualize yourself achieving the goals that you have in your mind, fitting into your clothes more comfortably, having more energy, being able to move around more freely and to have that ease of movement? There are studies that have shown that mentally rehearsing success can improve the real world success, your real world performance, whether that is fitness, nutrition, or even weight management. Okay. So we want to really look at overcoming those limiting beliefs, common thoughts, which I know I've been so familiar with in the past, like I I can't, I haven't got the willpower, I can't stick to a routine. We're creating barriers for ourselves. Okay. So flipping that script and also setting goals that are achievable, not trying to overwhelm ourselves by changing everything overnight. It just won't happen because we are creatures of habits. We're doing things steadily, step by step. We're being really gentle with ourselves and celebrating ourselves when we do make those small changes. Oh, I did have that. I know I added natural yogurt to my cereal and I didn't add the sugar to, or I didn't add the sugar to my tea this morning. And I'm really weaning myself off sugary tea. That is a huge achievement if you've been doing that your entire life and you didn't realize that it could be derailing your blood sugars and leading to your cravings and all the rest of it. It's a big step. So congratulating yourself for making small steps towards your big goal is really important. Um, I realize we have limited time and I keep talking. So, Ruth, let's go on to the next slide.
All helpful though, Sam. And actually it's pertinent, isn't it? It's really important for us all to be reminded of the power of our thinking. It's absolutely crucial. We're going to quickly share the poll that we were going to share right at the beginning. So let's do that. And I will talk through the next slide while you're having a look at this. Just to remind you, if you've not been here before, or even if you have, the polls are completely anonymous. We simply ask them just so we get an understanding of where everyone who is here today is at. It's really helpful for us to know whether this is relevant to you, because obviously we think it's highly relevant, but maybe it isn't, and we need to know. So let's talk a little bit about sabotage. I think this sort of really crosses over with what you've been talking about as well, Sam. So sabotage is one of those things that we can all be quite guilty of, and I think it really overlaps with everything you've been saying, doesn't it? But self-sabotage, we know, is one of the common reasons why weight loss efforts can fail, because of the head speaking, because we set ourselves up for failure, because we fill our cupboards with the wrong food, because we have the habit of always buying sweeties when we go grocery shopping, because people we know will invite us out for coffee and we know that we'll go and we'll always eat cake. It's all of those things that happen. It is around our belief system. It's sort of they're telling ourselves we can do something or we can't do something or we're going to fail. It can be that we just believe our willpower is the thing that's going to make the difference to whether we can achieve this success that we're looking for or not. We talk about willpower on another webinar, because what we have learnt and what we know to be true is actually habits are far more important than willpower. So actually setting ourselves up with really healthy habits, relearning habits that help us to succeed is really important. But it can be other people as well sabotaging us. So it can be that we can be sabotaged by other people. And I find that really interesting. So sabotage can be that we procrastinate. It could be, oh no, yeah, I'll eat these crisps this week and I'll give them up next week. Or no, it's too cold. I can't go for a walk today. I'll go for a walk tomorrow when it's not so cold. Or we can sort of like put things off. Even though we want to do them, it's amazing how our little brains will be encouraging us. That sort of little bad monkey will be sitting on our shoulder, just encouraging us to do the naughtier side of what we might enjoy in life as well. So we have to be really prepared and very ready and very determined, I would say. So that procrastination can be a real factor as well. And then we know that restrictive diets can be a real saboteur, and we don't always recognize that. So, what we've read and what we understand from working with lots of people and from reading the research is if you are on an overly restrictive approach to losing weight, that can set you up for disaster in the long run. Because you're so restricted, you feel as if you are going without, you feel very undermined. You feel as if you can't enjoy anything. You feel as if the food you're eating isn't the food you want to eat. And eventually, all of those beliefs and all of those behaviors will very often lead to a sort of burnout, diet burnout. We can burn out with this whole healthy eating. We can burn out with the thought of being on a diet. We can burn out of having to refuse the delicious foods or the delicious treats that we really want to enjoy. So we want to help you move away from that mindset as much as possible. We want you to be thinking about persistence. We don't want you to be thinking about perfection. We want you to get that sort of 80% rule really nailed in your head that you can be great and healthy and focused 80% of the time, and that 20% of the time you can allow yourself with freedom and with happiness to enjoy a treat. You can go out with your friends and you can have the coffee. Just don't do it every day. It's really important that we all adopt the sort of like non-perfection mindset, because what will happen if we can get our heads around that is we will be able to turn up for ourselves as many times as we need to. We also know if we go for that very restricted, very low calorie approach all of the time, we will feel very emotionally connected to food in a very negative way. So that type of behavior can almost lead us into a sort of binging type of approach where we've restricted, restricted, restricted. And then as soon as we stop restricting, we overeat, we can binge. And we know that the research is telling us this. We see it for people that we know, people we've worked with. We know that this is a very common behavior that happens if we over restrict. This is why we don't want you to be thinking, I'm on this strict diet. We don't want that mindset to be happening for you at all. We want this to be a lifestyle change, and achievable, turning up for yourself every day, having an occasional treat, really enjoying that treat when you have it and not feeling guilty. So I hope that makes sense. I can see around 50% of you have managed to fill in the poll. So not huge. Should we end it here? Just because I just think if you're not keen to do it, that's absolutely fine. So let's share the results and see what's going on for people. So I can see, what can we see here? So a lot of people, 51% of you are saying you're either on a diet or not on a diet. So that really, really is back to where you were at and what you were saying, Sam, isn't it? Some people track calories all the time, track everything. Some people are tracking calories, but not strictly, and some people don't. So it's a nice split across everyone who's here today. I think it's about what works for you. We know that tracking calories can become exhausting, and we sort of want you to also learn to just eat those foods that are going to love you forever. They're the ones to really make sure are on your plate and perhaps don't need to be calorie counted all of the time. So around 50% of people are focusing on eating whole foods. Around 40% are eating those whole foods some of the time. And around 10 or 11% of you aren't really worrying about the whole foods. So we'd really encourage you to start thinking, okay, these aren't something I'm familiar with. What one thing could I perhaps bring into my diet this week that would be a little bit more wholesome and something that will love me in the long term? And that when I learn to eat it and enjoy it, I can have it for the rest of my life and it's going to feed my health as well as help me lose weight. This is what we want for you.
Yeah,
Hopefully that makes sense.
absolutely. And also remembering that we may have been used to foods that are not particularly great when we're now on the weight loss journey and we're wanting to improve our health. And
Yeah.
we can have just got ourselves used to a certain routine. We can change our taste buds. We can change what we enjoy. So, we tell ourselves, oh, I've got a sweet tooth. Oh, but potatoes are my favorite thing, and or whatever it is. You know, that can change. We really can make a big difference. And it doesn't mean that we'll suddenly start loving the food that we've always hated. But what might happen is that you start discovering foods or ways of preparing foods. Actually, spinach is really nice when it's cooked this way, or salmon. I've never really been a fishy person, but actually salmons can be really delicious if it's made this way. There are thousands of ways to prepare our foods. And one of the things on this journey, because we know that it's often food is the kind of the first thing that we focus on when we are looking to change our weight, is to really be a little bit adventurous, because we get really stuck in ruts with putting the same thing in the shopping trolley every week. We really, and the same 5 to 10 recipes that we just recycle on repeat. So part of this journey is to just start to be a little bit adventurous on the way we prepare things, and discover new flavors and different things that we perhaps might have been a little bit, um I don't know, a little bit nervous of perhaps in the past, because we're so stuck in our ways, and we've got the things that we like and the things that we always do, and often it's out of convenience, and well, I've only got this much time. I know that I this is easy to cook and I can make it. There are plenty of fast recipes that are easy to cook that could be healthier for you than perhaps some of your favorites, or some of your, maybe not even favorites, just things that you have always habitually made. I hope that makes sense. We're just wanting you just to step outside the comfort zone a little bit and explore things that perhaps you haven't before, like trying different vegetables. I know I've definitely been in a rut where I've put the same vegetables into my trolley every week, or not even, the same products, always going the same things go into the trolley. But just veering outside of that comfort zone and seeing what else is out there can be quite eye-opening. You can discover that you like different things, and things that really like you back, and that really help you and support you on this healthful journey.
Yeah, very much. And I can see also only around 10% of you feel confident about this whole journey. So please, if you can, come to the webinars. Are 100% here to support you. Also, listen to the podcasts in between,
Yeah.
anything you can do to just keep on track and get that belief system in place is really important. I can't overemphasize that enough. I don't think either of us can overemphasize that enough. And
Absolutely.
only 10% of you are not relying on your willpower. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's phenomenal. It's a really good question for us to have asked and for us to understand. So, a lot of you are feeling like your willpower is your weakness. Let's try and let that one go, because really, this is not a willpower game. This is about just learning how to eat, how to turn up for yourself, how to consistently apply some simple approaches. I know we don't want to make it sound as if it's all very easy, because we absolutely know from personal experience and from working with all of you for a few years now how challenging this is. But we also know it can be a lot more simple than a lot of people want us to believe, I think.
Mm. Yeah, it's the consistency, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
showing up for yourself every day, and it's
yeah.
how you speak to yourself every day. And some of us, there were some comments I saw, really insightful comments of, oh, I can do it really well with someone else, so I can support someone else really well and help them to feel their own self-worth and change their inner talk. But actually, when it comes to me, it's a different story. And that's
Oh,
something that we really need to examine within ourselves and reflect on, because it's a really good reflection to um, to have. Um,
yeah, very
and and
much.
and each of us um, has our own story, and that's just one that I really recognize. I find it easy to support other people. Then when it comes to my own self-talk and some of the things I can say to myself, um, it's not it's not a pretty story. Are you all right there, Ruth? Would you like me to share
No,
my
I've
screen?
Yes, please. That would be amazing. Seem to have
Okay,
flipped out the sides, but I can find them if you can't for any reason.
I've got them here. Let me see. Here we go.
How weird.
Here we go. I think I can share and hopefully, can you see that?
Yes, perfect.
Great. All righty. So, this is another saboteur that some of you may recognize. I certainly do. High stress levels have been linked to increased binge eating. Specifically or particularly women who experience chronic stress. That's a persistent state of feeling overwhelmed, or when pressures are constantly exceeding coping ability. These women are more likely to overeat and engage in emotional eating, which can lead to fat storage and weight gain. And the afternoon and evening are particularly high risk periods for this kind of eating behavior. Um, so we want to think about or have an awareness of the hormonal cascade that is set off when we are really stressed. Um, it and we know that stress can manifest itself in many ways in our lives. And it's basically anything that triggers the release of the stress hormones, mainly cortisol. Um, that can be considered stress. So everyday, day-to-day micro stresses like having your morning alarm go off, and that tone going off if you're running late, if you're having a disagreement. More significant stresses, of course, are things like physical or mental illness, chronic pain. But regardless of how stress shows up in your life, it can negatively impact the body. Um, and when stress isn't managed very well, those cortisol levels rise and they stay elevated in the background, and that leads to several problems. Cortisol, our, one of our major stress hormones, increases our blood sugar by stimulating the liver to produce more glucose for energy in that fight or flight state, which is basically what the stressed state is. Um, and at the same time, it inhibits the release of insulin, our hormone that stores that sugar. So this results in higher levels of sugar in the bloodstream, preparing the body for action in that fight or flight state. In the short term, this can lead to weight gain, especially around our middle. Okay, and over the longer term, that elevated blood sugar can contribute to the development of diabetes, as we know. There's strong evidence that cortisol encourages fat storage around the organs in the abdomen rather than on the hips. Um, and fat accumulation in the abdomen is known as visceral fat. It's particularly concerning because it's associated with an increased risk of heart disease and stroke. When we're stressed, our lifestyle choices are also impacted. We often feel tired because our sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, is being in that, your nervous system is just tiring you out because you're kind of running on fumes. So it can lead you to reduced physical activity because you're quite simply too tired. Additionally, we might not prioritize cooking those healthy meals and instead go for more processed options or fast foods. So what I want to do here is just to bring awareness to these issues, that we can plan for high stress times often, and we can develop strategies to manage our stress and take time for self-care, take time to de-stress. And that is not sleeping, that is actively managing those stress levels, whatever that might be, whatever you find de-stresses you and takes your mind away from that rumination, away from that worry, away from whatever it is that is really upsetting you. It could be music, it could be playing with your pets, it could be being on the phone to a good friend, it could be getting some fresh air, going for a walk. There are so many things it could be. Maybe you've got some ideas in the chat box. What de-stresses you? What do you enjoy? Taking a lovely bath, a shower, lighting a candle, using some lovely smelling soaps or what have you in the shower, and just spending a bit of extra time just self-caring, just looking after yourself as whatever is going on in the world around you is happening. Because we know that we are living in particularly bizarre times at the moment, and there's a lot that could be worrying you. But making sure you're taking some time for yourself, it's really important for your mental health, also your physical health. Those two are not separate. Physical health and mental health are intricately linked. and of course linked to this weight loss journey as well. And we know now the role that cortisol, our stress hormone, plays on the weight loss journey. So it's an additional reason to get in that self-care, whatever that might be. You might like doing puzzles, you might like doing knitting, you might like walking the dog, things that just bring you a little bit of breathing space, that take your mind away from what is going on to the present moment.
Very much so. Sam, I'm very conscious of the time and we've got a couple more slides to share. So should we try and whizzle through those as much as we can? I
We
think
can.
there's sort of like bringing that awareness to your behavior can be the thing that absolutely triggers your change in behavior. So just getting that sense of understanding of what might be getting in your way can be the first step in sort of identifying your barriers to success. I won't labour on this point anymore because we've got a couple of other slides to share with you, and then we'll
Yeah.
come to your questions.
Yeah. Ruth, do you want to do this one?
Yeah, so mindful thinking, really important part of all of this process. And I guess it wraps around everything we've been talking about today, is a process of sort of like becoming aware of your thoughts, not judging yourself. Absolutely no judgment at all is required here. Just acknowledging what's going on for you, asking yourself the question that thought, ask yourself, well, why am I thinking this? Where has this come from? Reframe it. So if it is I've got no willpower, which we know around 40 or more percent of you are suggesting, just say that's nonsense. This isn't about willpower. Reframe it. Just catch that thought in the process and really just focus on the evidence, focus on what you've achieved so far. It doesn't even have to be that you've achieved great success with weight management. It could be that you are capable of achieving other things in your life. And actually, just remembering those achievements can help you understand that this is something you can do here as well. And be compassionate to yourself, create new thought patterns, and really empower yourself rather than undermining yourself. I think we'll leave it there because we've gone through this, but I think that's just the important approach to managing those thought patterns that is really important to be thinking about.
Yeah. And we can apply, we've got a couple more slides and then we will get to your questions. We can apply what Ruth has talked about, mindfulness, to our eating habits. Mindfulness originates from the work of John Kabat-Zinn, based on Buddhist techniques. And we can use it in the context of eating, really. And it doesn't actually necessarily mean slowing down, but really noticing when we're eating the flavor, the appearance, um, the textures, the taste, the complexity of what you're eating, and really savoring what you're eating rather than what we often do is wolf things down. And, whilst we're watching TV or, we kind of almost for, forget what we're eating. We're not in that moment. We're distracted by other things. So try not having the TV on, giving yourself that space, sitting at the table, eating your dinner, and really enjoying it, and noticing all the different qualities of that food. It shifts the focus, and mindful eating really shifts the focus from those calories, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins by engaging the senses fully with the experience of the food. And with this approach, people tend to eat less, you savor your food more, and you choose foods that align with your health goals. And we would really encourage you to truly think about what you're going to eat, look forward to what you're going to eat, take the time to enjoy your food in a distraction-free environment. Um, yeah, just in our busy lives, you know, eating on the go or while multitasking, mindful eating can really be a helpful tool to transform your relationship with food. So we've got a couple more slides. Sorry, Ruth. This is quite a useful one. And actually, I think we have a
Let's just
handout
do
to
this.
this one,
Yeah, great.
which you can maybe look at in your own time. But it's quite a useful one to get back in touch with what hunger feels like.
Yeah, and so what we would very much recommend is you think about using something like this scale to almost be your guiding mission in terms of when you eat, because I think one of the things that we can all do is almost learn to restrict our food so much that we're either ravenously hungry when we start eating, or we eat so much that we feel almost overfull and uncomfortable. So, using the hunger scale can really just bring some mindful attention to when to eat. So, we'd say start eating when you're hungry rather than ravenously hungry. So you catch yourself a little bit like blood sugar. You keep yourself just ticking along. Don't wait until you're starving hungry. Make sure you got that protein and the fiber in with your meals so that you don't have to eat all of the time, because we don't want you to do that either. And then we want you to really be conscious of chewing your food, slowing down when you're eating, really engaging with the pleasure of what you are eating rather than just rushing through because you're so hungry. Really enjoying the taste of the food that you're eating and really just savoring it. Stop eating when you're on about a 6 or a 7, because actually we want you to be almost satisfied, full, but not overly full, and really learn the difference and how that feels. It puts you well and truly in control. This is a technique. It works for some people. It won't work for everyone. It is about just some sort of like awareness and mindfulness. And remember, after you've finished eating, it can take around 20 minutes for your brain to register fullness. So if you eat really quickly and you speed through your meal, you've got to give yourself some time to catch up, for your brain to catch up, because the two things don't always connect straight away. And that goes along with that whole leptin resistance as well. So we really want you to have that sensation of fullness and to learn that growing appreciation. Some people really struggle with this. So we know it's not for everyone, but it's worth giving a go. That's all I'm going to say, those key take home messages from today. And then we'll quickly share with you the up and coming webinars, which is the next slide, I think. And we're missing next week because it's half term. And we know from experience that that tends to be a week that people are busy and don't choose to come. So we're taking a break. We'll be back with you on the 24th, looking at how to control cravings and those top tips for preventing self-sabotage. And then we got a couple more in March. There will be more. We will put more on next week. Let's come to your Q&As, your questions. So if we stop sharing the slides, that would be great. We have a lot of questions here, Sam.
Okay,
Let's see if we can put any together. So just a comment from someone who's saying, one of the attendees saying that they see themselves as having no willpower. Let's hope after today you can start reframing that for yourself. But thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and it does. It always seems easier. There are a couple of chat comments in the chat box about how, many people are able to look after others rather than themselves. Let's turn this around, guys. This is about us, isn't it? This has got to be about us. Even if we see every opportunity we eat as an opportunity to look after ourselves, that's the start, isn't it? Even if we can't do all of the other things, it's amazing how we can just reframe things.
yeah, yeah. So there's a message about, is fructose also found in fruit? Yes, but again, this is one of the things I talked about right at the beginning. So within the fruit, there's also fiber. There's also other nutrients. So I'm not worried about the fructose found in fruit. I would be I'm concerned about the fructose that is added to certain convenience foods and processed foods that can mess about with the whole our satiety hormones and our hunger hormones. If we can look at the back of a pack, because I know that we're all busy and sometimes we need to go for something convenient. But look, there are some that are better than others, and just look at what's on there because often there are hidden sugars in convenience foods, and just having a look at what kinds of sugars there are. It's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes it can't be avoided, but just being aware of what is going onto your plate and what those components are and how they might be affecting you. And perhaps if you can, making different choices and having something really convenient that you could quickly put together at home, without having to resort to something that is out of a packet and can cause you a bit of stress.
Just answering a question on somebody's asking about sending out slides. We don't send the slides, but you can watch the replay on YouTube, and the replay link should be sent out in the next couple of days to anyone who has registered for the webinar. Okay. Interesting question here about insulin sensitivity, how it increases your weight. So we know that insulin is something that helps us to manage our blood glucose, but it also is a fat storage hormone. So the more insulin that we have, the less sensitive we are to insulin, the more insulin we will make. If we become insulin resistant, we will have more insulin to get our blood sugar glucose stabilized. So we'll create more insulin to manage that process. Every time we eat, we are going to be creating more insulin. So that's why we're keen that you're not snacking all of the time. And we want you to just manage your insulin levels. It's not something that we can easily monitor at home, but you would know this just through steady energy, not craving all the time. If you begin to crave less and your energy is more steady, then you will know, hopefully, that you are getting your blood glucose managed, which will help to manage your insulin levels as well. Would you agree with that, Sam? Anything you want to add?
No, I think you've covered it there. I saw something that I wanted to answer. Oh, question. Silly question, but what are whole foods? What a great question. No, because sorry, we just assumed that you would know, but that's absolutely fine to ask what's a whole food. So a whole food is something that is um, unadulterated, so not processed in any way. So it would be the veg or the chicken breast that you're buying. That's a whole food. So something that hasn't been um, changed in any way. What would you say? Or sort of anything that hasn't been refined, really.
Yeah, anything, well, processed foods are foods that we get out of packets. I think that's the simplest approach. So anything that, obviously there are some whole foods that come in packets. So like oats are whole foods. If they haven't been mashed up loads, go for the whole grain. Go for brown rice, that's a whole food. We obviously don't want to be, well, I would suggest when you're trying to lose weight, you want small amounts of those. Uh, but then if you're eating a food like a burger, have a look at all of the ingredients in it. If you can eat something with less ingredients and just more of the actual natural state of the food, whether it's a nut burger or a vegan burger or a meat burger, it doesn't matter. Just try to go for the ones with the less ingredients, and then you're getting more towards that whole. And if you can cook from scratch, perfect. But we know the reality is that doesn't happen all of the time for many people. And so that's fine.
Yeah.
Some,
Oh, I was just going to say, there's a good question. Can you lose weight if you're doing 80/20? Yes, you can. And I think the answer that what I really want to stress here is 80/20 is a great way to look at because it's a great way to look at how you enjoy your food because it gives you a bit of leeway and it's not that you're being bad or it's not that we're not judging ourselves. We're just trying to bring in a bit of reasonableness as we move through and as we change our taste buds as we make those changes. This is a long-term plan. If you do 80/20 for 2 weeks, you probably won't see an enormous amount of difference. And I think that's a fair point. But this is not a 2 week plan. This is a lifelong change that we want you to make to sustain a healthier weight than you are right now, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. This is not a fad, it's not a gimmick. This is a plan for life. And the changes will happen slowly, gradually. We're not trying to get you to change everything overnight because we know that that is very difficult to do in a sustainable way, right? You can make those small changes and add to the small changes. So you're making lots of changes, but over time and slowly, you're taking all those steps to get to that bigger goal. But the steps are small so as not to overwhelm yourself, so that you don't suddenly throw your hands up at 1 minute and just go, I can't possibly do all these things. When you have habits of a lifetime that have got you to where you're at a point where you want to make a change. So yes, you can definitely lose weight with an 80/20 attitude, but it will take time. But I think it is a much kinder way to do it to yourself because you've been a certain way and have had a certain attitude perhaps towards your diet, perhaps towards movement, for whatever reasons, and we all have our own reasons in our lives. I think it's a very compassionate way to approach a weight loss and a healthy health journey, let's say. Um, so yes, but yeah, give yourself some time. And you know, the question is, I find I need to be on it all the time to drop anything. What I would really suggest is to be patient with yourself because we're not looking for fast results, even if you're using um, the injections or what have you. We know that some people here will be using weight loss injections, and that is fine. If they suit you, then great. But just bear in mind, even with those weight loss injections, we really want a steady approach to weight loss. We really want an average weight loss of 1 to 2 pounds a week, average. It's the advice is basically the same. We're going for whole foods. We're looking at macronutrients. So that's the balance of proteins, carbohydrates, fiber, fats. We're really looking at eating a rainbow, having those rainbow colored foods on our plate. We really don't advocate calorie counting at all, but we know that a lot of people are interested in calories, which is why we mentioned it today. And sometimes calories, having an awareness of calories and the calorie content of various things gives you an idea. But as I explained earlier today, there are things in your food other than calories that make a difference to your weight loss. So it's not the only measure that we can measure the quality of a food by.
Yeah, very much so. Somebody is asking if you can have alcohol when trying to lose weight. There's a great podcast around this subject. So, um, if we direct you to the podcast, have a listen to that if you can. You can have, there is nothing that is completely banned. I would say with alcohol, we know that people will lose their sort of inhibitions a little bit. So there may be an element of beginning to eat the foods that you might not wish to be eating so much of when you're drinking alcohol, depending on how much. We also know from the research that alcohol can have a bit of an impact on your ability to break fat down. So it can inhibit weight loss on the day that you're drinking alcohol. So we would recommend that you drink less frequently, and sort of really stay within those healthy units as your maximum level. Um, yeah. So it's just worth thinking about all of the things, and it's sort of the behaviour that goes alongside the alcohol drinking that we want to be moving away from. Would you agree, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, we would really advocate, it's the empty calories of alcohol that are problematic, but everything in moderation. We realize that that's, for some of us, it's easier than for others to stop drinking altogether. But, whilst you're on this journey, it's something to bear in mind to reduce.
Yeah, very much so. Somebody is looking for complex weight management advice, in terms of multiple other conditions going on, including fibromyalgia, low thyroid function, menopause, and PCOS. Sounds like a lot to be managing. So thank you for sharing that with us. I would say start by following our core meal plan. That is, or a Mediterranean style of eating. So we'll share those eating plans, Adna, if you don't mind, with you. Have a look at those. Those are the foods we'd really want to be encouraging you to be focusing on. To really, all of those conditions will be linked with elements of um, inflammation. You know, we want to be thinking about how we manage all of those, and we are considering writing um, a webinar all around PCOS, and we may consider one about thyroid if there's enough people who feel that it would be beneficial. Obviously, we cater to a large number of people, so we want to get it right for a large number of people as well. But we do get asked about these conditions fairly regularly, or we may just create some podcasts about those. But yeah, good. Thank you for letting us know, because we do know that that adds another layer of complexity. So thank you for acknowledging that. But yeah, start with those, see how you get on. Maybe really be thinking about your carbohydrates and limiting those to one meal a day, the sort of starchy carbs. Eat loads of veg.
There's a good question here about how to increase your water intake, which is a really good thing when you're on a health promoting um, strategy. Um,
Talking of which.
On right on cue. I'm trying to drink more, getting up to 2 to 2.5 liters a day. I struggle to drink water by itself. Is it okay to add a small drop of sugar-free squash? Um, you could do that. What we would say, as unfortunately, even the sugar-free stuff kind of tricks the body. So you're not actually taking in calories or energy, but your body still recognizes that as something sweet. So you're still getting an insulin response to the sweet, no sugar food or drink in this case. So ideally, you wouldn't do that, but you could flavor your drink with something else. For example, a whole food like lemon slices, like berries, like mint leaves. You could go for herbal teas or fruit teas if that's up your street. There are other options, but it's not the end of the world if you want to put a drop of sugar-free squash in there either. I think the fact that you are increasing your fluid intake is really good, but you should be aware that even the sugar-free squashes will have an impact on what your pancreas is doing, releasing that insulin. So I think this is again very clever advertising and marketing for things that are sugar-free, unfortunately, and still taste sweet. Our body's physiology is pretty ancient stuff, and it responds to that sweet taste. So um, as long as you're aware of that. And maybe you can wean off it as time goes by and you won't need it and you get used to the enjoying water.
Very true. Yeah, just wean yourself gradually. Couple of questions about stress, quite detailed questions. So, if it's okay with the people who've asked those, yes, stress is a really big factor in all of this and in weight management. We have a whole webinar dedicated to the management of stress and why stress is such an important area to be considering. And that's going to be running on the 10th of March. So, I'd love to invite you to come along to that because we can hopefully I will pick up those questions and make sure that we consider those in that webinar. Just because I don't think we can do justice to the questions now because we're running low on time. So I do hope that's okay. Thank you.
Great. I think also just to pick up on, I think self-care is so important when we notice that we are in a stressed or anxious habit, let's say, when something's going on in your life or you get triggered by certain things. I think making sure you're prioritizing some self-care for yourself. And I think there were some great suggestions in the chat box about breathing exercises, about just taking 10 minutes for yourself, 5 minutes for yourself, just having a pattern break. If you are spinning in an anxious whirl, can you just can you step back, take a higher perspective, just completely break the pattern, put some music on, move your body, open the window, get some fresh air, just take your focus away because sometimes we can get sucked into a kind of whirlpool of these thoughts that spin around our minds and it's hard to get out. But just noticing it, taking a step back and maybe programming into your day, putting something on your phone like an alarm at your in your lunchtime, that it's you actually spend some time just looking after yourself. You could, something really simple like having some hand cream and just massaging your hands with some lovely hand cream and just being really present and mindful in that sensation of putting the hand cream on. It's like a mindful exercise and it would take a minute, 2 minutes, and you could just bring yourself into that present moment, into that sensation, rather than getting lost in a whir of thoughts. And often it doesn't help because we're looping on the same subject. Finding a way that suits you to bring yourself out of those situations and getting your body out of that high alert, fight or flight by bringing in some of that rest, digest, heal energy, nervous energy back into the body. Because we exist on this kind of scale, right? So we've got fight or flight one side, and we've got rest, digest, heal on the other. And we need a bit of stress in our life to get us doing stuff. So it's not that it's completely useless, but we don't want to always be over that side. We want to move the dial. We want to, okay, I've had the push from the stress side, but now I need to get into that neutral zone so that I can actually take steps and move forward with what I need to do. Because if we're stuck on fight or flight, we're not thinking particularly clearly, and we are um, acting from we're very reactive in that space. And we can make poor choices, as I'm sure many of us know. I certainly do. Um,
Somebody's saying they're eating nuts and they find that the scales increase having eaten the nuts and they're only eating a small amount. Maybe you're having a bit of an inflammatory response to something that you're eating. It could be, sometimes foods that we think are healthy for us, for whatever reason, don't work for me or don't work for one particular person, work for everybody else. That can be a little bit frustrating. So really track that, see how many you've got. I assume the fact that you're talking about whole nuts is that they're not covered in salt. If they are covered in salt, that may be part of the issue, but I'm assuming they're not. But see how you go with those. Loads of questions we haven't managed to, but hopefully we've picked up common themes for people. Yeah. Anything you want to say as a last thought here, Sam?
Thank you so much for all the interaction. We've got some really great comments, really great support in the chat box, and excellent questions as always. Thank you. It's obviously a very
Yeah, somebody's asked us to
emotive
repeat it
topic.
soon because it's a big topic.
It's
So
a big topic and there's a lot to
yeah,
say. Um, but thank you everyone for showing up to see us and showing up for yourselves, more importantly. We really appreciate that you guys are committed to yourselves. You want to learn and you want to um, really, uh,
make the
really
difference. Don't
make the
forget,
difference this time.
we're
Yeah,
not here next week. We'll be back the week after. So we're here on the 24th. Do book in. And we really look forward to hopefully seeing you then. Take care and have a good week, good couple of weeks.
take
Look
care
after
now.
yourselves. Bye. And thanks
Bye.
to you, Adna, for being here too.
Thank you, Anna. Bye, guys. Bye.